Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Guest Talks webinar. We're very excited to have you join us today as we explore the hot topic of gaming in education and game-based learning. For the next hour, we'll look at how gaming is revolutionizing classrooms by building critical skills like problem solving, creativity, and teamwork. And we'll also discover how game-based learning not only engages students, but also opens doors to future career opportunities in a rapidly growing industry. Before we dive in, just a quick note. On the side of your screen, you'll find a control panel with a Q&A tab and another one for handouts. You can browse and download the files at any time during the webinar. You can also use the Q&A to submit your questions throughout the session. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll try to address as many of them as possible during the discussion. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our chair and moderator, Michael Bradbury, the Director of Education at the CEA, the Center for Entertainment Arts, to introduce the rest of the panel and kick things off. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Danny. I'm joined today by Niall Statham, the assistant head of Hartland International School, Faisal Kazim, the Director of Future Foresight at Dubai Future Foundation, and Mark Bryan, PYP Coordinator at GEMS World Academy in Abu Dhabi. My first question goes to all of you. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just give us a little bit of your background when you're answering as well before you answer. So my first question is, what do you believe the core values that gaming can bring in an educational context? Faisal, I'd like to go to you first of all to address that.
Sure. Shall I do a quick intro first?
Please.
So my name is Faisal Kazim. I'm Director of Future Foresight at Dubai Future Foundation. Dubai Future Foundation is a Dubai government organization with a very broad mandate of making Dubai a leading city of the future. So we're constantly looking at industries of the future. This ranges from topics or industries related to climate change mitigation, all the way to the metaverse, to the games industry. So as part of this, the research work, one of the initiatives that I've been leading is the Dubai Program for Gaming 2033, which was launched November of last year. So this was launched by His Highness the Crown Prince of Dubai with ambitious goals of making Dubai a leading city in the games industry by the year 2033. Happy to elaborate a little bit more about that later. But then back to your question, what does gaming bring to education in general? So I think there's two sides of it. So there's a gaming side of it, and then there's kind of like a creativity side also to gaming. So the obvious things, in my opinion, that the gaming brings to education is the problem solving skills, critical thinking skills. A quick story, like my 3-year-old, he was watching me play a game, and he was just observing. So I was the one that was playing, and he noticed something like a teleporting tool that I had. I wasn't even thinking about that. Like I had a 10-hour work day. I was at home just on my couch. I just wanted to relax and play. And I was about to head into this dangerous place. It's like a stealth-based game. And so he was like, "Baba, wait, like you have this teleporting tool. Place this before you head into this dangerous place. And that way you have a way out." And I was like, wow, that's great thinking. So that's that got him to think about, it's kind of like it's foresight, basically, is what it is. Foresight, problem solving skills. There's a lot more to it, but then there's also the creative side. So I'm referring to things like user-based content. So you have you have games like Minecraft, even Fortnite, Roblox. So people are actually the gamers themselves are becoming the creators of these games. So there's a huge creativity aspect as well. But I think I'll stop there and I'll hand over to the others.
No, that's some great points you've made there, and there is a really big push and focus on this creative economy now. turning the people who consume the media into creators of this media. And that's happened very much in Roblox, but now the UEFN are taking hold and doing some of that as well. They've made some huge strides forward with that. We'll jump quickly to Mark, because you mentioned Minecraft, and you've just finished a Minecraft competition right now, Mark. So again, we're gonna touch a lot of this, but just again, a quick introduction to yourself and just some core features and values that you think gaming can bring before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff.
All right. I hope everyone can hear me, and it's an absolute honor to be on this panel with you guys today. So I'm really proud to be here and speak alongside you guys. So appreciate it. I'm going to touch on what Faisal said there. And he spoke from kind of that parent perspective and that parent lens, and I do that when I look at things through education, and also kind of addressing those ATL skills that we're really looking to kind of empower the students with, especially in the IB curriculum. And I think it all comes down to the core value of voice. And I know voice is kind of a buzzword that was used in education for a little while, especially the past few years. But it is something that I've seen firsthand, whether it's with my daughters in esports at school or my esports team that just finished and they're starting to develop roles and responsibilities and teamwork, and they're linking that with their house system here at the school. They start to see that their voice and their interest, even in the digital space outside the school setting or within a team, within a school environment, matters. And when students know that their passions and their interests are valued and the things that they care about are heard, then we can go with things. And that's not just esports, that's with everything. So I think I would say esports is an avenue to get more student voice and hear really what is driving our students, and then, connecting things to this creativity world and connecting these things to these lifelong skills is just those added bonuses that come with the fact that students feel empowered by you listening to them.
Brilliant, some excellent points. Lastly, and not leastly, of course, Niall, is there anything that you'd like to add to that? And of course, introduce yourself slightly as well to move forward.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Niall Statham. I work at Hartland International School. I'm the assistant head teacher here. I've been in education, don't let the face fool you, for more than 20 years now. An unconventional background into gaming, I suppose. I was the captain of the UAE rugby and 15s team, so all my gaming has been on the sports field. However, in my personal life, I've always been an avid gamer, sort of starting back to, I was playing Tetris on the original Game Boy and carrying rucksacks of controllers around to friends' houses to play GoldenEye on the N64 to see who was best before we really understood esports in the way we do now. The number one thing, or the number one reason I'd advocate for people to get on board with esports in their school is inclusivity, because it allows people to cross social boundaries, which are otherwise difficult to cross. I was so surprised the first time we ran esports in the school that who turned up, because who you think you're going to get and who you actually get, the secret lives of children, who are the ones that are engaging in this already outside of school. Firstly, you'll be surprised. And the second thing that will surprise you is how quickly those friendships form between students who you wouldn't necessarily see sitting together in the canteen or sitting together in lessons, because it allows them to find a common interest, and it very much levels the playing field. There's no physical ability that's required to be involved in it. It's not set by academics. It's purely a common interest. One of the beautiful things about esports is that the scaffolding exists in so many different ways. So it's really accessible. So even those ones who don't play outside of school can still find a place easily in the ecosystem of esports. So if you're looking for ways to create more belonging in your school and sense of community, then I think it's an excellent starting point.
Yeah, I think you've made some really excellent points there. When I was introducing esports at my school, I saw a very similar approach. The students that were stereotypically, shall we say, not great at sport and didn't involve themselves in that, weren't particularly having the opportunity to be involved in a team sport or collaborative sport and that kind of bond, whereas esports allowed them the same that the sports teams did as well. So I think that was a really interesting thing. I think that you're right that I saw, but we'll get onto a lot more of this later on. But some really nice points. And welcome everyone So my first question goes to Faisal, and it's around the Dubai Programme for Gaming's 2023, which is an incredibly ambitious project, as you said, to make Dubai a global leader in lots of things, but one of them being obviously gaming. How do you envisage the initiative helping schools and institutions get into it? What, as a government body, is there anything you can do to help support the schools, or how do you see that working?
Sure. So I think education and upskilling talent and growing the talent pool was one of the main kind of drivers of why we launched the Dubai program for gaming, and of course it begins at schools, and then education continues, keeps continuing, and our role is, we want to support the existing private sector institutions, schools, and universities, but also to increase awareness. I think one of the misconceptions of the games industry is that it's not a serious industry, and so one of the things that we're looking to do is create awareness in terms of what are what are the skill sets that are required for developing games, designing games. Why are they relevant today? But not only today, but also in the long term. So this is a very long-term initiative. It's called the Dubai Program for Gaming 2033. No one can predict the future, right? So 10 years from today, no one can tell you with certainty what the games industry is going to look like. But what we're betting on is that it's very likely that the future is going to be digital, and whatever that future world looks like, whatever you want to call it, whether it's the metaverse, the games industry, is very likely going to be created using the same tools, game engines that are used today, Unreal Engine, Unity. So it's not just about gaming. So gaming itself is huge. It's between $200 billion to $350 billion globally, depending on how you define the games industry. And then, but those skill sets will allow the people that are learning game development, game design, to be able to contribute not only towards game development and game design, but also the much bigger creative economy, which is a $1 trillion economy, which includes things like movies, film, TV, animation, real estate, etc. So that's, I think, that's what drove us towards launching the Dubai program for gaming, and it all begins with education and growing that talent pool, and we're starting really small. I think in the MENA region, the games industry's, I think, contribution to those big numbers that I mentioned earlier is actually pretty small. It's only 5%. So we really want to grow that, and we believe that by starting with growing that talent pool, upskilling that talent pool, we will start to attract the various stakeholders in the gaming value chain that will then again drive demand, which will create supply, and more demand, and hopefully grow from there. But that's in a nutshell. I think I mentioned awareness. We're also looking at attracting employers. So we're looking at developing partnerships with hopefully publishers that will publish indie games. So there are, these days, thanks to the powerful tools that are available, very small teams can create amazing games, amazing indie games. So we're looking to at least have some partnerships with publishers to again create that demand, so that the demand for that gaming skill set becomes obvious, and that perception then hopefully will change from gaming being just an industry that's not so serious into like a serious career path with a clear way forward.
That's a very concise and detailed answer. Thank you very much. You covered quite a lot. And obviously, I agree with all of what you said there about not just the idea of it's gaming. There are so many other avenues you can go into with this. One area that I'd like to elaborate on a little bit more, and I'd like to push Niall or Mark for answering this, or both of you, of course, because of your experience, is obviously you discussed there a lot about education, Faisal. One barrier I found when I was doing this in schools was the parental barrier, perhaps actually breaking down that paradigm and actually trying to shift mindsets to, no, this is really useful. This is actually quite a nice skill to have. Mark and Niall, could you give any advice for anybody watching the webinar potentially on how to engage parents and how to kind of help shift those barriers, or if you haven't found those, or if you haven't seen them and I was just unfortunately an anomaly?
Well, I spoke before Niall the first time, so I'm going to let him go first, and
okay.
I'll jump on his answer next. So you're up, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. It was something that I did worry a lot about at first, but it actually turned out to be a much smaller problem than I thought it would be. When we sort of put the opportunity for students to be involved out to parents, we just tried to be as honest and upfront as we could about what it was, why we were doing it, and what we hoped the students would get out of it, and also at the same time tried to be clear about what it wasn't. You know, we were trying to form a team to compete in a competition in an activity that the students enjoyed doing. They were already doing it outside of school. We were providing a safe and supportive environment for them to do it, with rules, with supervision and structure, and they were going to go on to represent the school, and we really valued their participation and involvement in it. Just that the medium of doing it happened to be on a computer. You know, that if I'm very honest, as a PE teacher by original trade, I've dealt with far more parent concerns about rugby, which is the sport I played, than I ever have done about esports. And I think you can spend hours, and it's an unending conversation about how much and how long and all these kind of things. But I think from a school perspective, we felt that we were doing it in a balanced way. We weren't asking students to make drastic or any real alterations to what they were doing as part of their daily schedule, and we're confident in the approach that we have in school about screen time and use of technology, so that this is part of a healthy and balanced lifestyle, and everything in moderation.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I let you go first. Well said. I have to go back to Faisal on this one, because I think he touched on both these things as on his first two answers, and it comes down to credibility of esports and what it is that we're trying to build here, whether the stakeholders are government partners, whether it's the students, the teachers, the parents, who's involved in it, and letting them see a little bit of the bigger picture. And then it goes to those life skills that the students get from it, those ATL skills, communication skills, social skills, all these things that are developed through esports that might not come to the forefront when you're thinking about it firsthand. So that credibility, those skills. But I think the secret has been, and I'm hoping to speak more about this because I think it's one of the missing pieces in education, is finding the correct opportunities to educate our community about the things we're passionate about. And so what I'm trying to do is capture these moments with parents when they're already in the school celebrating things that they already value that are going on in their students' lives. So they're coming in and they're meeting the teachers, or they're coming in and they're sharing something with a science fair, or they're coming in, whatever that thing is, that alongside that, you showcase these kind of maybe not undervalued, but unknown qualities of your school culture. And when you have them there and you have your esports team and the screen is up and they're shining and there's people taking roles and responsibilities and people are talking about going and experiencing it kind of at the big scale and going to big, large events and what they learn from that, parents get excited because they get excited about their kids. They get excited about voice, like I'm going back to before. It's not about me standing in front of them, telling them the 10 amazing things about esports and how much whatever. Some of them have heard that and they've read that. But when they see it in the students, when they actually see it and they have kids talking about it, they get really, really excited. And then they look for more opportunities to create maybe things within esports or things that are more their passion and interest. And that's how you build a school community that truly values student voice.
Thank you very much. There's some great answers. A very poignant question has just come up in the chat that I'm going to deviate quickly onto this because I think it's quite a nice question, and I think that again it's what the viewers of this would like to know to help implement is the safeguarding aspect of it as well. I guess question number one might be what is esports. Question number two is what's the safeguarding potentially, right? So again, from two people who've implemented this, what do you believe would be good practice for people who are watching to be able to use tomorrow? What actionable things could they have if they have any concerns about safeguarding? Mark?
All right. Yeah, I've done this in a few different ways because in my previous setting, and sorry if I didn't introduce myself before, I'm working at GEMS World Abu Dhabi here on Reem Island. I'm the PYP coordinator here. In my previous setting, I was actually looking at gaming through the PYP lens. So kind of students 11 years old and under, and we were not doing it through kind of this online platform. It was done in-house, and we were looking at games kind of like Mario Kart and things with on Nintendo Switch and things that were very, very accessible, and you didn't have to have too many kind of skills to build up, and we could kind of get a culture of valuing this kind of digital space. And we tried to promote that through a variety of ways, but in our weekly assemblies, we would have top kind of racers come up, and we just kind of created this culture of gaming. And they brought it then in-house into games like FIFA and so on, and they were starting to be student-driven. However, now that we've gone into the MYP and my new job setting here with GEMS, I think some of these things come into play, and I think it is really important that we are at every step kind of following along the journey, that we understand what it is that we're putting these students maybe not at risk to, but always kind of having a risk assessment element. And I think it's really important that the partners that are trying to host a lot of these platforms, that there's clear communication with them and with the IT departments within your school, so that some of those areas where maybe there could be certain access are really kind of monitored and kind of addressed immediately if there's something to pinpoint. And I think, starting small, I think that's the big thing, is don't jump into something that you're really unfamiliar with. If you're really kind of just getting your feet on the ground, maybe start within your school community and then kind of try to get some people who have a little bit more experience to partner up with and host some of these matches, work with your IT department, and then still work alongside educators within a community that you trust. So right now, we're partnering with about 6 schools in Abu Dhabi. I've known all the educators for a few years. I've been with them. I've heard about their experiences in esports. So I'm not going off to a separate location yet with a school or a community that I don't understand or I don't know who I'm working with. So for me, it's start in-house, slowly build with partners that you trust and support, and work with people that you can have a clear dialogue with, so people that you already have relationships with within the education community. I'm sure there's a lot more strategies, but that would be my first kind of top 3.
Okay, anything you could add to that, Neil, or a different approach, perhaps?
I'll add one more thing, but I will say that very much mimics the journey that we went on. We started internally, then we found another school who was a bit further ahead, and we got a bus up to their school with our esports team, and we played them in person. So that was a great way of getting parents on board, because they had the physical experience of going to another school. We took a couple of videos of just the noise and the atmosphere that was going on in the background, so they were having a great time. And then after that, when we built up a bit of an appetite, we joined an online competition. It was run by a company called Digon, who've done some of the competitions for COBIS and BSME. So they'd run a lot of the checks and put the strategies in place on behalf of schools. And then as we got more confident, we were able to do more. But I think, as Mark says, helps at hand. I think also important to remember that whilst it is very important to keep students safe online, we're also trying to teach them the skills that they need to be responsible digital citizens. So we can't always be scared and protect them from everything. Part of this process is learning about how to behave online, because if you look at things that are happening online and you go into you're watching a stream of a gaming competition, there's all sorts of nonsense going on in the chat stream and the feed, people who are not responsible digital citizens. So it's important that they get in that environment from time to time, not unsupervised, but where we're trusting them to make the right decisions, because these are the people that are hopefully going to improve this ecosystem in the future.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've spoken a little bit about how we could potentially break down some paradigms for parents and people who aren't sure what it is. We've cleared up some of the areas around safeguarding to make sure that we don't know, it can be done, and it's about starting in-house and just starting small and then expanding, which would be great if only, if people watching this just followed that model, right? It'd be fantastic. By the end of next month, we could have so many more people doing it. What I want to do now is jump ahead a few years. With Dubai positioning itself as a leader in gaming, I'm going to come to Faisal first of all with this. What career paths would you see these youngsters going into? What pathways? So we're introducing these skills, we're introducing these different approaches, perhaps, different ways of problem solving and different kind of thinking pedagogies. What careers are going to be opening up for these potentially in the future? What do you envisage at the Dubai Future Foundation?
Thank you. Yeah, I touched on this a little bit in the previous question as well. By the way, can you still hear me? I got a notification saying that
I keep saying that.
My connection is okay. Great. So I touched on this a little bit earlier. So these skill sets are extremely versatile. I was surprised to learn when I was in my earlier years working on this initiative that Epic Games, the owner of Unreal Engine, one of the main game engines, their main event was going to be focused on real estate. So it's a game engine that right now is being used in real estate. So when you think of the future, again, 10 years from today, it's very abstract. It's not easy to predict what that future is going to look like. I mentioned Unreal Engine, but then when Apple released their Apple Vision Pro, it's mostly those digital environments are created using Unity. So these are game engines that are meant for developing and designing games. So those future careers could be things like developing digital environments for AR, for VR, for games, for film. The Mandalorian. I love using this example. I really like the Mandalorian. The digital environments in the Mandalorians is created using Unreal Engine. And I actually visited in Dubai Production City. There's a studio there that has a very similar setup to the exact same studio that created those digital environments for the Mandalorian. So these skill sets can get people working for awesome things like the Mandalorian. But then also, if you think about it, it's really the future digital world. I think in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, I think there was one particular headline. I think that was when Dubai was going through like a real estate and construction boom. And there was one particular headline: Dubai was home to the highest number of construction cranes per square foot. The goal really for us by 2033 is to have the digital version of that, so we want to have the highest number of digital creators of this future digital world per square foot.
Okay, brilliant. So that's kind of the goal. So we kind of know where we want to go. So Mark, does introducing esports at a young age, does it really set people up for that, do you think? Does it really help with those skills, more so than potentially other ECAs or not compared to traditional sports? Just does it help? Have you seen it help? You've been doing this for a long time now. Would you have measurable examples of where you've seen things that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think within the education space, learning Learning is driven by questions, right? And it's the things that we're allowing the students to question and explore and research and make reflections on and go through this inquiry cycle. And those are the things that build those ATL skills. And those are the things that kind of drive kind of their knowledge and understanding of the world that they live in. And if we give them opportunities to allow questioning through the digital space to happen, then we're allowing that inquiry to happen. And they could say, okay, my question is about what does teamwork look like when you're, in a digital space? Okay, how would we explore that? And they come up with the different pathways. And how would creativity allow me to showcase my understanding of art in a digital space? Well, I don't know. There's probably tons of platforms you can explore. And they go in and they find the platforms and they explore, and whether they're creating on Canva, whether they're creating on Tinkercad, whether they're in Minecraft education, bringing artworks and sculptures to life and creating digital worlds, doesn't matter, as long as they know that their questioning is also valid in that space as well, and with different things that's popping up. And I think that's, when you get to a point about keeping kids safe, and some of their questions will bring up some of those topics and concerns about how come we cannot be creating games within roadblocks in the school setting right now? How come it's always Minecraft, or all these things? And we can start looking at those different avenues and really kind of exploring through their inquiries. And I think when we hand things over to students and know that we value it, not maybe in the kind of the typical way that we would do their inquiry, or their inquiry can be supported through digital spaces, that we can really explore the things around us. And that's where I start to learn what is out there and what is provided to educators and students and families within this space. I don't know everything. And like we were saying before, we don't know what it's going to look like in 2033. We don't know what is going to come out next month. If we look at ChatGPT a couple of years ago, how quickly that came out and how it's massively transforming even the education space for educators now. It's being able to ask the questions and be ready for those things to pop up, and then explore them alongside the students and our families. And so it's all about knowing that their voice, again, is connected, and that we can provide them opportunities to really inquire into these spaces alongside them.
Okay, and then you said something there which I think was really interesting, actually, and something that we haven't kind of focused on, but we are essentially, or not we, I don't want to speak for myself, I don't want to use the word experts. Using the word expert sounds really terrible. I hate that. I don't want to say that. But we have experience. We are at least passionate amateurs at doing this and delivering it, okay? Do you think, Niall, that in your school or in other schools that you potentially have seen, that there isn't that passion amongst potentially the educators as well? Because Mark just spoke there really well about like how, well, yeah, you can present work, or you can use inquiry in different platforms. It doesn't have to be in this traditional sense. Is there enough passion for that in the schools, you think, to help drive this forward as well? Because yes, it's brilliant that we're doing it, but how do we expand that, and how do we show this power and this potential to our colleagues? With everything that we've got to do, but with everything that we've got to do as educators as well.
Yeah, great question. Look, I think it's about schools are building good people, or trying to build good people, good citizens, people who are going to contribute to society. And I think people get so bogged down in what is the vehicle for learning it and what's the best. Anything that's helping develop these skills is going to be worth trying, isn't it? If you want to develop elite athletes and you're looking for high performance, well, the skills you need for that are about communication under pressure, about impulse and emotional control. You can develop all of these things through esports, and you can also highlight where people don't have it through esports in the same way that you can through other things. But I think the thing that's holding most people back is there's the misconception about what it is. There's the people who have they've drawn their line in the sand that kids shouldn't be playing computer games, and there are people with a refusal to look past that, and they're going to be hard to reach, but they aren't going to be the people that we convert in the first instance. And then my personal view is there are lots of schools who I've spoken to who are interested in getting involved. They're just not really very sure where to begin. And hopefully a lot of those people are here. and you see lots of people promoting what they're doing online, which is great because it raises awareness. But often you're seeing like really slick rooms of gaming chairs and high spec machines, and people are saying, right, well, I'm at school, I've got 30 kids in my class, and I've got no budget and no equipment, but the kids are saying, "Sir, miss, can we start esports?" And I don't really know. I'd love to help them. I don't really know how, because I don't think my principal is going to give me the money for it. So I think that's where things like this are useful, and people mostly are just looking for a helping hand in where to start. But I think some of the work that Faisal and his team are doing, and some of the initiatives that are already in place, are helping. The Dubai Esports Festival offering free attendance for students and schools to go is great. So a really popular event, and it's a great eye opener, because I take colleagues who don't who are less familiar with it, and it's a great chance to point out, when you're talking about careers, the people who are playing the games are one tiny part of this ecosystem. There are people who are commenting on it, there are people who are producing the media, the build up to it, there are the sound engineers, there's the lighting, there's the people who set up the whole thing, there's the people who plan the events. It's a massive there's a massive world out there. I think we just can't. We should spend less energy getting bogged down into the false dichotomy of esports versus real sports, because it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone go anywhere.
No,
So,
no, you're, and I really, it was really, it was great to mention the players are you could argue that the people playing are the smallest piece of this kind of esports presentation. I've been fortunate enough to attend a Blast in Abu Dhabi, and I was at the Commonwealth Games esports in Birmingham in the UK, and yeah, fantastic. And then you go behind the scenes and you see hundreds more people all part of this fantastic machine making this fantastic production. It's not just the gamers, that's actually a small piece of it as well. So and I think that's really important, that when we talk about delivering esports, are we showing the students that as well? Are we saying, look, this is a huge industry, esports is a huge industry, just look at some of the championships, some of the prize pools globally for some of these games are huge. League of Legends prize pools, massive. Counter-Strike is massive. So what's happening behind that? If you're interested in this industry, if this has captivated you, well, look at the hundreds of roles that are available to you in this as well, and that, I think, helped me with getting people on board in the past. One question that I'd be amiss if I didn't ask, but I'm scared to bring it up, and I'm sure that we all can answer this very quickly. But obviously, a few years ago, we had COVID. I'm not sure if you remember it, but there was a big, people were like on their screens all the time. And has there been that kind of knee-jerk reaction to not? I know when I went back into school after COVID, after the long break we had in the UAE. Didn't happen everywhere. We had quite a substantial break away from schools. There was a drive to not use screens. There was a drive to let's get back to traditional education. I think it's kind of going back a little bit to no, we need these tools. Have you seen anything negatively about the screen time aspect of this? And Faisal, again, asking as a parent as well, screen time and what they're expected to do outside of school, inside of school. Is it something that you've seen impactfully? I'll first of all ask Faisal as a parent, screen time and esports, and then I'll ask Niall and Mark about what they think about that, and very quick answers, of course, for this. I would be amiss if I didn't bring it up. I think it was a question and a comment.
So so very quickly, as a parent, my kids are pretty young, so I think you kind of, as a parent, you have a hunch. You kind of have a hunch. You get this sense of whether something is turning into an addiction or not. Yes, there are these like this great story that I shared earlier in this session about problem solving, foresight, that kind of like critical thinking and creativity, all these benefits that come from gaming. But then you kind of get this hunch as a parent that, okay, wait a minute, is it how much is too much? And I think there's no one. I don't think there's going to be one clear answer. It really depends on on each human, because we're all different.
Okay. From a school perspective, gentlemen, Neil?
I think I get quite hot under the collar about this because, you know, when we run an esports enrichment at school, it lasts for 1 hour, and then the child might spend 90 minutes going home and they're on their phone for that entire time. So in one car journey, they've taken this, you know, they've had the same amount of screen time with no benefit. And I think what we're talking about here often in the screen time debate is that there's lack of ability to self-regulate. And I think that's what Faisal was starting to talk about there, recognizing when enough is enough and when too much is happening. But I think, you know, it has to be a partnership. When we're talking about students, we're talking about the communities that we're raising them, and we're working in conjunction with parents. I do think you can reach an acceptable agreement together. I think there's a responsibility for schools now to look at their use of technology more closely and make sure that technology is being used in a way that it's transformative in learning, maybe a little bit more than they are at the moment, and not just as a convenient thing to use. You know, come in with your laptop closed and open it when you need it, rather than open it and then close it if you get told to close it. And then, you know, parents and students have got to support this as well. You know, they have to think about the habits that they practice in their own time, and again, it becomes part of being a responsible digital citizen. We're all responsible for our own actions, and you know, we all make the decisions in our life about how much time we use on screens. Some days we get it right, some days we get it wrong. But I think when it comes to students, as long as, you know, we can always reach an agreement with the parents that we have the best interest of the student at heart together, we will always share that interest. So, you know, I think it's easy to overcome if we start from there.
Nice one. I'll just jump in for a second there. I'll stay away from the family debate with iPads and restaurants and these kinds of things. That would be like a really long chat. But when it comes to the education space, I think it comes to meaningful and it kind of purposeful reasons why we're getting kids to open up devices. And here at GEMS World, I think you have to lead into, I know we didn't want to classify anybody here as an expert, but I would definitely say that all three of you are more experts than me. I'm learning so much just in this small chat. But you have to lean into the experts at your school, and often you have a tech integration specialist, and we have that here, who sits alongside our teaching teams in our collaborative planning meetings. And we talk about the technology that we want to bring in. They look at the options, they look at the safeguarding, like you said. And then we monitor how much technology we're using throughout a unit and using throughout a day. And we have to be responsible as educators to make sure that the art department isn't jumping on Canva while science is going onto a virtual space to look at a simulation. And then over in the unit of inquiry, they're jumping onto their platform to do their digital reflection. And then by the end of the day, you have been on a screen for a long period of time. I think those things we are responsible as educators to be aware of that. And that's where collaboration comes in. And that's where we work along experts within our school to ensure that we're doing things to the best ability and to serve our students and our families. And then once we do that, we can go into a friendly conversation and try to educate parents or try to hear how they balance technology at home so that we can then support that here, because it is real that what you're doing with devices rolls on, whether it's in the car on the way home or on the bus or whatever. We have to work as a team, because that's what a school community is all about. So get your experts on board and make sure that you're doing things for the right reasons.
Yeah, do you know what, Mark? I want to reiterate that, because that's not something I've heard before. But for everyone who's watching, that's a really, really nice idea. And you know what? It's so obvious when you say it, but I just didn't think about it that, yeah, because there's departments within a school are so detached and they're so focused on what they're doing. You're right, the students might be on their screens in art, and they might be going from lesson to lesson, hour to hour on a device, and actually not picking a pen up at all for potentially the entire day. And not that that's a bad thing, because technology should be integrated into lessons, because that's what we're told. Make sure it's innovative, make sure you're innovative. So everyone's doing that, and no one's actually thinking the bigger picture. Actually, that's a really, really nice thing to consider. And again, I would absolutely recommend that to everyone watching. Do you know what? It's really great. That's actually taking me back. It's so I've not heard of that before. It's really, really good. I really like that.
I think just to, sorry, Michael, just to pause you. I think when you're thinking about an innovative approach to teaching, it doesn't always necessarily mean technology, right? To be within a space. I think sometimes we do get locked in as educators sometimes where we think that maybe is our go-to, like how can I make this innovative? Therefore, I must go and I must get this, and this, and I need to keep up with it. It's you can be really innovative and really creative and hands-on. And I think we've seen that with the rise of STEAM-based education and project-based learning, kind of in the past few years.
I will completely agree with that. I think innovation is one of the most dangerous words in education because no one really knows what it means. And it differs from person to person and school to school, in my opinion, from what I've seen from working in the UK and working here. And I remember, I believe it was in the UK, we were told to be innovative and use iPads. I was like, my daughter's older. I have iPads older than my daughter. Like, that's not innovative. Like, some students, some children will pick up an iPad before they pick up a pen or a pencil. So how is it innovative? How is an iPad innovative? It's just, it almost goes back to the fact that do we need to help educate our educators in doing this as well? But you're right, and sorry, just going back, because I was just thinking of a point with some research that I'm doing that in the UK recently, they banned mobile phones in classes. Now, I know that that's a different debate, but it's that idea of, well, we can't police it and we don't know how to do it, so we'll just blanket ban it. Well, for me, how are we helping them becoming digital? Who's going to teach them how to use this device, how to self-regulate, if we're just banning it? If we're just saying, no, you can't use it, then again, it goes back to what Niall said and what everyone said here today is, no, introducing this will help self-regulate it. If we don't teach it, if we don't bring attention to it, how can we expect these people to self-regulate if we're just going to ignore it, if we're not going to embrace it? Okay, thank you. And I've got a couple more questions, but I want to have a look in the chat. There's some good questions coming up in the chat. So examples of games being used in other subjects like math and science, not just ICT. Yes, of course. Again, from my experience, what I have done in the past is I was helping out with the Unreal Engine for delivering geography lessons, history lessons, art lessons. You can build your own. You can build an an exhibition hall in the Unreal Engine, and you can virtually walk through it. You can put on the VR goggles, and you can walk through it. So again, that's a fantastic way of integrating technology, gaming, game engines into the curriculum. Now, everything we've spoke about today, if I'm not wrong, was esports and gaming as an addition to the school day, potentially. Like, how do we work to get these skills into the classroom? How do we work to get these skills not just at the end of the school day? How do we work to gamify the curriculum to make our curriculum potentially more innovative? I know we've just talked about the screen time issue, but do we need that? Is there room for that? Or do we keep it as an ECA, as an addition, so that people who want to opt in can opt in, rather than forcing everyone to do it because we think it will really help them? What do you think about that? Faisal, first of all, to you, just what do you think about the idea of forcing everyone to do something rather than just allowing these people to opt in? And then Niall and Mark, how would you kind of respond to that?
So I think forcing is a strong word. I think, and I'm biased, but I see it like if it's not introduced, then I just see it as a lost opportunity. It's just having it part of the curriculum makes our next generation future ready, and of course I am a bit biased here, but but yeah, I think I need maybe a couple minutes to think about it. So I'll hand over
Okay, cool.
to Mark or Neil to elaborate.
We're considering now adopting the BTEC in esports at our school as well, because
Yeah.
we recognise the growing interest in it, and that it's a viable career path for lots of students. But I think I would treat it like a lot of the things that are now we take for granted in school. School curricula are changing all the time, and you can argue till the cows come home about there's more history every day, and there's lots of valuable things to learn about in history, and we have to make choices about what we do and don't put in the curriculum. But when I went to school, we were learning about word processing, and then the word processing era ended, and then someone said, well, all students need to learn how to code, so we started teaching coding in school. And then someone said, well, look, AI is going to do the coding for you, so you need to learn about AI. And somewhere in the middle of that, then someone said, right, hey, now it's the responsibility of the school to teach students about how to be safe online. So I think curricula is constantly adapting, and I think schools need time to become comfortable with this. But I would ask people to look towards the OECD Learning Compass for 2030. Two things that stick out in that: social skills and teamwork, and digital literacy is in there as well. So is creativity. Schools will have to adapt and are constantly in the process of adapting. Do I think, do some schools cover it in their curriculums already? Yes, they do. And are more and more schools starting to experiment with it? Yes, they are. But it takes time. Anything in school to make anything new, we have to have schools need time to allocate resources to it. They're looking for examples of best practice and where they can go with it. So I think this is why I think things like this are valuable, and for things like this to be more widely adopted in school, people need they're just looking for a little bit of support. But students now learn things in these lessons that I never did, and their kids are going to be learning different things again.
Yeah, you're right, and I think you're absolutely correct, and they do need support. And one thing I would like to bring to this in a very positive way, but also very critical, because I think we have to be realistic as well about how we introduce a curriculum and pedagogy and different approaches to stuff. Because it's great to say, yes, let's gamify it, let's make it digital. But as someone with secondary school experience, teaching secondary school and A-level, there's always a point in the year, it doesn't matter what school you work in what country, where it's like, right, exam time. So it doesn't matter, there has to be a time where it's been very snapping back to, we need to make them exam ready. So all the fantastic different learning initiatives tend to dissolve. I'm not saying that's in every single school at all. I'm just saying that there's a focus on exams where we have to make sure that they're ready for that. So it's really interesting and good that we should definitely create these learners who are fantastic with digital and can problem solve and do different things. But at the end of the day, we still tend to assess them in the exact same way that we did exams 12 years ago, perhaps, when we were all doing their exams. So that's what I'm quite critical of as well. Like I love it. I'm very passionate of it. I'm an advocate of it. But at the end of the day, we're preparing. Yes, we are preparing people to be fantastic citizens, to contribute to society. But there's also a small bit of this being quite critical where we have to get them ready for an exam as well. So that's a.
Can I jump in on that quickly? Sorry,
Please.
I know I'm going out of turn here, but a good example on Times Education today about the need to change English. It was about English exams and the need to change the devaluing of oracy in assessment of English is a great example. We're constantly talking about the need to develop confident public speakers, but we don't assess it or allocate any time to it. But a great challenge someone put to me on this. We're talking about we're a high performance learning school, so we're talking about skills based education. But the bit that people miss in this is that if you want students to achieve these top grades in these exams, if you look at like D's and E's, they're recall questions. They're like, how well can you remember? If you want to get the C's and the B's, then you're starting to do like, right, okay, start to apply and and can you take some of this and apply it? And then if what you want is students to get those top grades, then what you're saying is, all right, you need to have the skills, the critical thinking, some of these skills that we've talked about developing. You need to find information and put it into a completely unfamiliar context and recognize patterns. So I think it's possible to, maybe we're talking about utopia here, but if you want the top answers and you want the top results, these are the skills that you need.
Yeah.
I'll jump in there just at the end, because I think what you're talking about is an IB education. So let's jump in getting on board with the IB, because we, especially in the arts, you break things into creating and you break things into responding. And I think just to go back to the esports angle on whether this is something that's going to be happening after school or during the day, I think to anybody in the chat, of course, integrate into the curriculum, you have Scratch Junior, you have Scratch, you have Python, you have Minecraft education. These are all the big kind of players within a space that do fall into curriculum and are kind of seen as common links. But where do we get esports into that kind of realm? And I think within the IB curriculum, I don't know if everyone is fully aware or listening, it's run by kind of transdisciplinary themes that are then you focus on a central idea, a statement of truth that then the students inquire into. And that statement of truth can change depending on kind of the context of the school or the context of the unit. And you could have a statement of truth linked to esports, or esports could be a line of inquiry that you could use to prove something. And I'd have to make up a central idea now where esports was relevant. But if and I could do it, but I'm not. I'm gonna pause there because we'll be here till 5:30 or so. But if you have esports running in your school, students can use that as examples, as ways to research, as ways to build communication, to go and chat with people. And then you look at building that understanding, not in your classroom, but your school community, then your wider community, and then the world. And I think if it's not existing in your school, it's never going to be a tool that they use to prove anything, and they're never going to inquire into it. They're never going to ask questions about it. They're never going to see it. So yes, maybe it happens after school right now, but that's the starting point for them to notice it, ask questions about it, and embed it into their learning.
Brilliant answer, thank you. And then Faisal, do you want to come back and have the final word before we kind of close up, because we're running a little bit over already, but thank you very much.
Since we're almost running out of time, I'll keep it quick. So I just remembered the future digital world and the physical world, they're kind of overlapping, right? So yes, metaverse is like a 2-year-old term now. Nobody likes to use that term anymore. But also if you think about esports and physical sports, so if you think of Formula One, for example, you have Formula One world champions that are utilizing simulators that are used for esports to become better, to keep up their performance, to stay at peak performance. I believe I don't know if this is a true story or not. I've heard Max Verstappen has a simulator on his private jet. So there is, yeah. So there's definitely an overlap, and in the future, the physical world and digital world are expected to overlap even more. So I think there's yet another need for maybe introducing esports in addition to physical sports in the curriculum.
Yeah, and you talk about Max Verstappen doing a private jet. A few of my friends are pilots, and they have to do simulator training. I mean, that's something that they've been doing for decades now. Like it's real, right? So why are industries adopting things like VR, XR, gaming, and education is yet to kind of catch up with that? What is that slow adoption? What are the barriers? But that's a discussion for a completely different time. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed, and we could carry on chatting. We've only scratched the surface. We've only just scratched the surface. I feel, but it was really enlightening to speak to you. It's great to meet you all today. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm sure our audience can agree that it's been an incredibly insightful session. So thank you all for your input. I'm conscious that unfortunately we couldn't get to all the questions that were asked, but we'll try to share share them with you via email and try to get back to those who asked them after the webinar. And before we wrap up, I'd like to remind you that GESS Dubai is in just a little over a month. And if you enjoyed this webinar in particular, the pop-up. So yes, if you enjoyed this webinar in particular, you'd be able to meet and hear Michael, Faisal, Niall, and Mark all speak at the show that will run from the 12th to the 14th of November at the Dubai World Trade Center. We're going to have an area on the show floor dedicated to gaming and education that includes a conference stream focusing solely on this topic. So make sure you sign up to attend either through the pop-up that appeared on your screens or by visiting our website, guestdubai.com. And there you'll also be able to view the agenda for the Gaming at GESS stream for all 3 days of the event. I also realized that Mayank from HP was in the webinar commenting, so a special shout out to him and the HP team as well for being our founding sponsors for the Gaming at GESS feature. GESS Dubai is open for all educators to attend for free, and the conference is CPD accredited, so we really hope to see you there. Also, if you're a supplier that perhaps provides gaming solutions for education institutions and would like to connect with and meet thousands of education professionals through exhibiting at GESS, please feel free to reach out to us and we can surely assist. Lastly, a recording of this webinar will be available on our GESS Education website and YouTube channel, and we'll be sending it out via email to all attendees. So don't forget to complete the survey as well. That will appear once we end the session, as we truly value your feedback and suggestions for future topics. A big thank you to all our panelists and you, our audience, for being here today. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on our upcoming webinars and events. Until next time, have a wonderful day and week ahead. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.